Hello, freak bitches. Well, I mean, it is interesting to hear people's take on the climate issue because there's hard left and hard right. Hard right is it's a cycle. It's always happened this way, and you're impeding business. Hard left is we're all going to die, and then Miami's going to drown. I mean, and Al Gore had already predicted in that movie, An Inconvenient Truth, that we were going to be covered in water in 2014, right? Wasn't it 2014 they were predicting that the ocean levels were going to rise to the point where we're going to have to start evacuating some of the coastal cities?
That's right. He missed that one just by a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah. But he came out with another movie. 12 people saw that.
More Inconvenient Truth.
Yeah. And nobody has watched it, I don't think. But
Did you see Bill Nye when he was on Tucker Carlson's show?
No.
It was very interesting.
Really?
It was very interesting. Because Bill Nye, who's not really a scientist.
No. What is he? He's an engineer.
He's an engineer.
Engineer, that's right. Yeah.
Which is,
still gotta
discipline
be
based, have to be smart. But, he calls himself Bill Nye, the science guy. He's, by the way, he has an undergrad degree. So doesn't even have a PhD.
Hey, I
or
got
an
one
MD.
of those.
Yeah. And they were talking about climate change, and Tucker Carlson said, "I'm willing to absolutely believe that people have an impact on climate change." He goes, "But can you tell me how much?" And then Bill Nye kind of got flustered, and he got like a little confrontational, a little defensive. It was really kind of interesting because Tucker kept pestering on him. Like, we're talking about science, so I would like you to tell me, how much of an impact have people had? What are the numbers?
Is it a narrow range? Can you give me a narrow range?
Is that nothing?
Yeah.
It's just what he does is he publicizes science for his own personal benefit.
Right.
He has that terrible show on Netflix, Bill Nye Saves the World.
Yeah.
Bitch, you're not saving shit.
Yeah.
Okay? You can't call your show Bill Nye Saves the fucking world. You're not saving the world with this crazy goddamn song about gender.
And he has.
You see
my
that?
God! Yeah.
Do you see that thing?
That was stunning. Yeah.
What in the who the fuck greenlit that?
Yeah.
Like, I love Netflix, but hey, a little quality control is not a bad thing. Let's have somebody on set to go, whoa. What in the fuck is this? Like this,
like a censor, like in that movie Good Morning Vietnam. You know, somebody that sits there and reads through his material before he does it. No, I saw that, and I thought, clearly they don't have anybody who has to approve his content.
But that just shows you where his mind's at, that he's willing to say yes to that. That's someone who wants to acquiesce with no uncertain terms to the left.
Yeah.
Like, he just wants Meanwhile, he had a film out, a movie or a television show out years ago where he was describing gender, and he was basically saying there's two genders, and it's about X and Y chromosome. I mean, which is what everybody's been told in science and biology class. Then he has this show just a few years later where now the tide has turned politically, where this is such a weird subject about gender and sexual identity and gender identity.
Oh my God.
And so he's got these songs about, like what that lady singing that song, like, hey, this is fucking terrible. Like, all you're doing is just like the same thing as President Trump staring at the sun.
Yeah.
All you're doing is setting yourself up for ruthless criticism that's going to diminish any potential legitimate point that you actually have.
But I will say this: I don't think he really got pilloried for it. Right? I mean, nobody really. There was some.
Online?
Yeah, I think some people
Bill
made
Nye?
fun of him, but I think Bill Nye, for the most part, he knows that's a very comfortable place for him to do, or for a lot of people. If they say, "Look, I just want to get the adulation of the left, of the far left," then fine. I mean, that's what you want to do it. But you see people that kind of shift their position and are happy to be there because they know they're going to be coddled and. So I get why he does it, because it's a base of it's an audience that he knows is going to stick with him as long as he says the right things.
Yeah.
And apparently he doesn't really give a shit about science, so he's happy to say anything.
Well, I think he does give a shit about science, but I think he gives a shit more about people liking him and fitting in with this crowd of people. There's a weird thing that's going on in science, and there's nothing like science is fantastic. It's critical for our civilization. I'm not a science criticizer. But there's a weird thing about people that are a part of science, where their own egos and their own need for positive affirmation sort of supersede any critical thinking. So there's certain subjects that cannot be discussed. There's certain things that they're almost like it's almost like science religion. So there's certain subjects that aren't even open to scrutiny.
Well, I think that's right, and I think part of it is also we have gotten to a point where you can't. and I don't know how you walk it back, but you can't have conflicting ideas in the same statement or the same sentence. And things conflict all the time, right? And you can have truths that collide with each other and don't necessarily make sense. So, but it seems as if now everything has to be in absolutes,
right?
And whether it's climate change, so you can't say, if you just have this middle of the road, discussion where you say, well, look, of course, humans, I'm sure, have some impact. I don't know what that is. And this is a problem, and we do have to do our part, and we do have to work to try to be the best we can be. But that's not good enough. You've got to be sort of totalitarian about the whole issue, and it's not just that. It's any argument. It just seems as if, and it's not just the millennials. I'm not one to beat on the young kids or the generation of whatever we want to call them nowadays, because I know a lot of good kids that are out there that are working hard or they're in the military, and it's a fantastic group of folks. So I think we're just fine in that regard. But there does seem to be something about each successive generation, and we've gotten now to a point where people have a hard time processing this dissenting opinion idea, and that starts to shut down debate, and it starts to shut down the idea that you can have a discussion about science where you have these conflicting ideas, and how do you resolve them? That used to be the whole concept about science, is to test theories and come up with what works. And anyway, what do I know?
I think it's because we're attaching egos and personalities and virtue signaling to the actual hard data itself. Like here's the thing that we should all be concerned with: pollution. We should all be concerned with human waste. We should all be concerned with the damage that we're doing to our water, the damage that we're doing to the environment. There's a host of different things that human beings are involved in that are creating irreparable harm to the environment. We should absolutely be concerned with that. But what's weird is that you hardly ever hear about that. You hardly ever hear about doing something to curb the plastic in the ocean, doing something to eliminate some of the sewage waste that goes into the ocean. There's a ton of different things that we're doing that are huge issues. But instead, you hear about climate change, and it becomes this ideological left versus right battle, which is it's just very weird to me. And I understand that climate change is a real issue, and if the ocean water continues to rise, coastal cities really are fucked, and if the temperature does rise, we really might have to migrate to more, better climates. But there's a lot of other shit going on that seems to get ignored during this process.
Well, interesting. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when plastics, that was an issue, right? Plastic bags, or keeping the oceans clean, or don't be a litter bug. I mean, it was more of a. It was things that you could accomplish, right? It was things that you could do, the community could do. So you would have these community drives to pick up trash, or to not use plastic bags, or to whatever it is. And it was stuff that you could do, and you could see some results, and you felt good about it. And who knows? Maybe we've gone past that now. And so now that's not good enough, because, now we've got to save the planet. Well, you save the planet these little steps at a time, right? If every community says, well, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about the polar bears, so fuck it, I'm just going to worry about myself. But if you bring it back down to those little things, like you were, maybe implying, then I think we're better off, right? And eventually you do make a difference. But if all you do is talk about climate change and save the planet, people just get overwhelmed. It's like a lot of other things in life, and you just think, fuck it, I'm just going to focus on other shit.
But it's just so strange that climate change has become this weird ideological debate between the left and the right.